Welcome to My Mustang Garage. Welcome back to My Mustang Garage. Now before we weld, there's a few things I'm going to show you. As far as equipment and tools to weld, especially plug welds. First, what you're going to need, which is most important, is a welder. This is my Lincoln Electric Easy MIG 180, and I have a fresh bottle of what they call 70-30 welding gas for MIG welding. You're going to need a whole lot of clamps. You're going to need your welding gloves. You're going to need your welding jacket. Also, you'll need your welding helmet. I suggest you get a really good welding helmet. Now that has to do with the welding side of it. You'll need like welding pliers and stuff like that. But you're also going to need an air line and an air gun. I like this old-fashioned one with a rubber tip. The rubber tip is good for testing things out, blowing things off. It's just an old universal type. You know, I'm not too fond of the wands. The wands are made of metal and they hit and scratch and stuff like that. So I just get the rubber tip one, and that's fine. You want yourself a body hammer. That's so when you clamp it down, if you have to, you know, tap it down around the hole to make it more flush, because the key to plug welding is getting the metal as flat together as possible, so when you weld, they melt together into one piece. If there's a gap, it's basically just going to fill the gap in between and barely touch the bottom piece, and that's where weld fails happen. So you want the metal tight as possible, and if the clamp isn't doing it, you just go ahead and tap around it. Now you'll need a really good light. This is my old Harbor Freight light. It's been through a lot. And the sandblasting cabinet's taken this and turned this into a nice little satin finish here, but it still works. What I do, it's a magnetic base. Whatever I'm welding, say right here, I just put the light over it, because the more light you can see, the better you have of controlling where the weld's going. So go ahead and have a nice light and illuminate what you're doing. Now, to get the best weld possible, you could just go ahead and clamp this up, start welding. But the coating, even the weld through coating, causes a resistance. And it may cause the weld to not penetrate like you want it to. So there's a couple methods to getting that weld, this plug weld, the way you want it. Now the first one would be just take a screwdriver and a pick or something and scrape all the paint inside the hole that you're doing. There's another method where you take an end mill bit and you take it, you take the end mill bit into a drill, and got a flat end mill. That's what it's called. And you just go in the hole, and while it's going, just do the inside the hole and get the coatings off, whatever's in the hole, back down to metal. That's one way of doing it. The second way being scraping it out of there by hand. But my favorite way of doing it is this bead blaster with the little round nozzle on it. And you just go up to the spot weld, cover the spot weld up with this, the plug weld hole, cover it up with this, give it a quick shot, and it will take the material off on the top side and inside the hole, giving you a truly clean surface. I suggest after you do this, you take the air and blow it off, because there's going to be a little bit of residual sand that does come out of this, and not every bit of it goes back in. But before you weld, you know, spray it off really good, and you're good with that. Now I'm going to show you how this works in a few minutes, and I'll set this up and I'll show you right now. Okay, these are the spot welds on the drop off, and these 4 welds right here are for the back panel that's on all coupes and fastbacks, and these 2 welds here are the inside bracket that I showed you on the previous videos. We can clean all these up, but the ones where most important is these 4 right here, because we are going to weld those when we weld the trunk floor top side, then this side, and then this side. But we're going to leave these 2 until the very end for when the trunk is welded down. Then we can put that bracket that's on the inside in permanently. But we got to get these set first. But to clean them up, to get the best possible weld, what we're going to do, we're going to use this. This is a this is a little spot sandblaster, and I just got regular Harbor Freight 80 grit black sand in here. It only takes a second. And what you do, let me zoom back in so you can see what's going on. What you do is you go ahead and clamp it down. You don't want a lot of space in between. What you're trying to do is clean the inside of the hole and the outside of the hole. The reason why you see it cleaned out on the outside of the hole right here right now is because I had to sand off the burrs when I drilled it and put a step bit through. This side had a bunch of burrs on it, so I cleaned out the burrs. What we're looking to do now is just clean up this inside the holes to be really clean, so there's no resistance to the weld when you're welding it. So what you do is you just put it on, you just put it over the hole. And you just do all the holes. Try to put it as center as possible. I went on and moved this one out of the way. What we're looking for is a nice cleaned out hole on the outside here and the inside here. And after you get done doing that, there's going to be a little residual sand. Go ahead with the air gun, blow it away a little bit. You could go ahead and start welding here. Everything will be perfect. There's no resistance now for you. The welding wire is going to stick immediately to the bottom side, and the protection is still there where it's underneath the panel. The sandblasting material is not going to go and take out material way over here. It's just going to take it out where the hole is. The whole idea to get a flatter weld, a much tighter weld, and a much more penetrating weld is to have this totally cleaned out. And the easiest way I've seen is using the sandblasting method. It only takes a few seconds. You just hook it up to your air gun, clamp it down, spray it for a couple seconds, and it's ready to go after you take the air and knock off all the dust, and you're good to go. Now that's my method for getting a clean weld to lie flat. See, most welds turn out bad because of the material not wanting to stick, because there's something in there. It could be old E-coating, too thick of a weld-through primer. Yes, weld-through primer is weld-through primer. That's why they make it out of zinc and copper. And it's supposed to go through it and stick. But it's still resistance. It's still meeting resistance. And the more resistance you have to making this penetrate and puddling out and being flatter, is still too much in my view. So get it clean, back down bare metal, and we're good to go and start welding on here. As you can see, I've already done a few plug welds and ground them down already, right here and over here. I haven't done this one yet, but I've done this one. See, when you weld, you want to move your clamps over to the next weld, then do those, and then move your clamps again, and then do those. Since I've already done these 6 over here, I need to go over and do the other side over there so the pan goes down evenly. But for now, I've gotten started. Basically, I did these off camera, and I haven't welded in a while, so I had to fiddle around with getting the welder dialed in to where it wants to be, with the heat and all that. I had to also dial down the speed, because it was coming out too fast and causing it to basically not lay down right. So I had to bring down the speed, and when you bring down the speed, it's gonna puddle and turn into a red molten lava puddle where the bead is, and that's good because it will flow out and be flatter. See, you have to keep messing around with the heat. The heat, if you're blowing through, you're too hot. If it's welding too fast, it's the speed of the wire. So you can go higher with the speed or lower with the speed. And with the heat, you have to adjust it by the thickness. On inside the cover of this machine tells you which part of this should be on which thickness. My experience, start with one that says on the guide, which it said B. When I used B, it was blowing holes right through the sheet metal. So I went to A. And then when I had it up on 6 for the speed, it was way too fast. It was coming out and sputtering and not making a good, you want a good sizzle sound like you're cooking bacon, like a buzz, 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 a steady buzzing noise, like bacon. So what you do is you slowly bring it down, and you bring it down to where, you know, you go down a half. This is, you know, variable speed. So you can go from 5 or 6 where it was and slowly go down a half, another half. I'm gonna go ahead and set up the camera, let you see what I'm doing over here, and we'll get this all taken care of and welded down. Well, we're right to the point where, like I only have a few welds from here down on both sides and doing this transition panel. So I removed and moved the floor out of the way so I can get in there with the clamp and be able to put a clamp up in here to get to these to hold them down and make sure this panel is in its position. And this panel will be done welded on. And before I do that, I have to remove this cross brace right here. This cross brace is no longer needed since the side to side has been found, and this panel and the cross member has been welded in. This is not changing positions. It's bolted into place, and all I have to do is remove this so I can get in there better, and I don't have to do the limbo to get underneath this or raise my legs and try to get over it to work in this area. As you can tell, I'm a big guy, so I'd rather move this than fight with it. And so I can finish and continue right here. Now I got the floor all welded down. As you can see, the plug welds, they're not the prettiest in the world. I'm still trying to get used to this machine. They're kind of bumpy and lumpy, but there's a saying out there, if you're not a good welder, you can be a good grinder. But as I progress and get to know the machine even more and I find out these settings, I'm having a hard time because the settings the machine is telling me I should use for this gauge of metal isn't the setting. It's blowing through like crazy. So what I'm doing is doing the best I can. Then I come back and I grind all the welds down. As you can see, I got all nice and flat and everything. But the thing is, when you're doing grinding, you want to take just the top edge of this weld off. Do not dig in around the area here. This metal is only 18 gauge steel, and it will get really thin and crack. So what you're looking to do is just grind the top of the weld off with an aggressive, and then you come back and you clean it up. And you'll know when you're there, you'll have a little shadow. You'll have a little shadow of a circle of where it was. If you have a little pinhole, you can always go back and touch it up with the welder. Hit a spot here, just fill up that little pinhole. It's not really a pinhole. What it is, the void in the weld itself. And if you're really anal about getting that little itty bitty void covered in, you can take the MIG welder and tap it in there real quick and then grind that little spot down. But some people just take filler and just fill on the holes. Now if you go from the back side with the light and you see light through it, then yes, go ahead and fill it in with the MIG welder. Don't use filler. Just do it right the first time. Now, as I said, I'm gonna go ahead and grind all these welds down. It's gonna take me a good couple days to do all the grinding and everything, only because I'm disabled. I can only do a little bit at a time. Like this little bit from here, from the back to here, took me about 3 hours to do, only because I have to take breaks every 15 minutes. The problem of being disabled and old. Now, what we need to talk about now is these right here. These are the spot welds that not spot welds. These are the guide pins we did to hold this inner bracket in. These inner brackets in for this brace inside the frame rail right here. And what we need to do is pull these pins out and get them prepped so I can put 2 plug welds here. Now the first thing you need to do is on the inside the frame, go ahead and make sure it's in there properly. And you want to hold the inside of the brace down on the bottom side. And I'll show you what that looks like. You're just wanting to hold this brace on, so when you take out these, they stay in place. You can see all the way through. And what we're going to do is, let me put this back on the tripod. What we're going to do is take a spot weld drill, and it's got a 1/4 inch pilot. It's got a 1/4 inch pilot on here, and you're going to put that through the hole as a guide. It's going to center up the hole in those spots we did, and you're only going through the first layer. It goes really quick. And what you do is get yourself a magnet. I got a pocket screwdriver magnet, and pop it out of there. The reason why it's got a little lip on the back side, and that's because I don't want to dig into the side panel. And it pops right up. Now, as you can see, okay, as you can see, you're just cutting the top edge right here, exposing the center layer. You're going to do the same thing on the opposite side from the bottom, but that's much later when I do the underneath the car. But we have to get these plug welded and ground down just like this. Now next week, when I come back for the next week's video, you're going to see all this all ground down already. It's going to be all ground down and flat. I really don't think I should have show you and teach you how to grind welds down. It takes finesse and your own abilities to determine when to stop. In other words, I can show you, but it really takes practice. And I'd practice on another piece. I've done this many times before, so I know how far to go before you just say, done with it. If you have to use a little filler to straighten it all out, use a little filler by all means. But this is the trunk floor, there's a trunk mat, and right here is a big old spare tire anyway. Nobody's ever gonna see it again. But this is nice and flat. It's not wavy. It's not distorted. Now, I will explain the procedure though. You take the 36 grit and put it on your roll lock grinder. And hold on. And you just grind just the head off. Do not let the disc touch the flat panel here. You want to use it flat. Don't gouge it by using it side. You want to go flat and use the outer edge, not in the center. In the center it doesn't do much, but you want to put it off to the side, but being flat, and just grind the edge off. Once you get down to where you're almost there, you go down to like an 80 grit roll lock and put that on there and grind that flat. And once you're satisfied with that, you can go ahead and determine if you're good to go, which I leave a little bit. I rather have a little bit extra here for extra strength, especially for a spot that's not seen or visible. So I just leave a little extra. You may not see it here, but there is a little extra here on this part that I ground over here. This part that I ground over here, every spot I had a plug weld, there's a little crown, but it's very unnoticeable. In fact, it's so flat, it doesn't even look like they say it's supposed to look like a spot weld, but it's so flat right now. You could paint this, and by the time you put the primer on it and the paint and everything, it'll smooth itself all out and be really nice. I will tell you something about 18 gauge sheet metal. When you're welding to the frame rail, which could be a 14 or a 12 gauge, it's almost an eighth of an inch thick. Could be, I know it's not 16, but I believe it's 14 gauge steel. When you're welding 18 gauge and 14, you have a tendency to get enough penetration. To get enough penetration to the 14 gauge, you may blow out the 18 gauge. That's okay. You got to fiddle around with the welder to get the right heat and the right speed of the wire. It all has to be balanced out. And by the time you get to your like 1,000th weld, which 1,000 plug welds in a build of a car is not even a quarter of doing the car. You'll put in close to 20 maybe 20,000 welds. Am I exaggerating? I don't know. It depends on the size. If you're doing a bus, you can put in 20,000 welds. If you're doing a little Yugo, I don't know anybody want to restore a Yugo, but you could have, a couple thousand. But I'm saying practice makes perfect when it comes to plug welds. And if you got a little blow through, let it cool down for a minute or two. Because what happens is, if it's too hot and you keep adding it and it's still getting hotter and hotter and hotter, it'll just fall out. I mean, it'll blow right all the way through and hit the floor. So what you do is go ahead and let it cool off, then fill in the hole. Let it cool off again, fill in the hole. So the next video, you'll see this all ground down, and you're gonna see that it has primer on it. Well, it's not a primer I'm gonna use permanently. Because I have to take my time and do this job, I need a protective primer on here. And I just use a regular Rust-Oleum 1K primer. Nothing special, just to keep it from flash rusting. Now, I do that because it may be a month or two before I come back to this area. Especially if I'm just going to paint the car later on. All I have to do is take the 1K primer and use thinner and it'll wipe off. That's the only good thing about 1K primer. I wouldn't paint a car with 1K primer because it never cures right. But it's good for temporary protection. So when you come back, and hopefully you do come back, this will all be ground down and you'll notice primer all through this area. And we'll be ready for the next exciting part, and that's putting the brackets for the spare tire mount, the brackets that go underneath the car for the emergency brakes on both sides, and there's a bracket that's underneath by the frame rail here on the trunk floor for the rear brake hose. That's where the rear brake line goes to the rear brake hose that feeds the axle. There's a bracket there that holds it on with a clip, and you have to put that bracket on too. And I'm going to show you how to put that on. Now, if you like any of my content, please like and subscribe and share, make a comment. Tell me I'm doing it wrong. Tell me what I'm doing wrong with this welder that I have. It's a Lincoln Easy MIG 180. Now my problem is, even though I got plenty of gas and I'm using the correct voltage and speed that's listed in the thing here, I go up and down, down and up, and I can't get the flow the way I'm used to. That's the only bad thing about a new welder, is when you get a new welder, you have to relearn the setting points. And some people actually put a piece of tape right here and mark down the gauge of the wire and the speed and the heat. So the next time they do it, all they have to do is set it on there and they're good to go, because they know what it takes. Here, I'm only guessing right now because even though they gave me a minimum parameters to start by, you have to change it little by little until you find your perfect weld puddle that melts right in and melts the outer edge and makes it all nice and solid and flat. There are some guys out there that can weld them and don't even have to grind them. But for me, I'm going to be doing a heck of a lot of grinding. And I don't mind. This is just a pet project of mine. It's not like I have a deadline for a SEMA show or something like that. This is my own personal car. I do it on my own personal time. So, I hope you can join me next week when I will show you this all ground down, primered up, and I'll show you where to put these brackets on.